Welcome back to From the Shed End. I hope you're all doing really well on this Tuesday afternoon. Now, before we get into today's video, as you can see, I'm still on holiday. But before we do anything else, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, you like this video, and you leave some thoughts in the comment section as well. Now, we're going to do a quick transfer roundup of all the latest transfer news surrounding Chelsea, surrounding some of the outgoings, surrounding some of the incomings as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot of discussions around who might be leaving Cobham, who might be joining us at Cobham. Now, let's start with some of the outgoings at the moment, because there is still a massive question mark over Ben Chilwell and Raheem Sterling's futures at Chelsea, whether they will still be Chelsea players come the end of this transfer window shutting later this week. Obviously, Raheem Sterling, who hasn't featured in Enzo Maresca 2 games so far against Manchester City and also against Wolves this season so far, finds himself 3 years left on a contract, 300 grand a week, still uncertainty around his future, whether he will still remain a Chelsea player. Now, obviously, it's a massive concern, not just for the player, but also for the club's perspectives as well. Having someone like Raheem Sterling, who, the age of 29, has the option of still trying to fight for his place back in the squad, could also run down his contract. 300 grand a week is a lot of money to allow an asset, which is what the clubs will see Raheem Sterling as a asset, a potential asset on the books for 3 years, and not necessarily getting as much football as he should be. So I do think Raheem Sterling will leave. I think he wants to try and get back into the England fold for the next major tournament as well. So I do think we might see Raheem Sterling leave. Now, obviously, it's really difficult to get a deal done for Raheem Sterling, really down to the fact that he's on a lot of money. There's not many clubs out there that's going to pay 300 grand a week for a player that is nearly 30 years of age. And I also think as well, where would Raheem, what team would he fit into? What team is going to come in? What team needs him? And there's been a lot of talk about Aston Villa. Can they afford the wages? Will he take a wage cut? Possibly not. There's also a lot of talk about Juventus, who were very keen early on in the transfer window to try and sign him. I don't see a club coming in unless he takes a massive pay cut. There is probably potential that he's going to want to stay in London. He's settled in London. His family are from London. That was one of the selling points of him coming to Chelsea in the first place and moving from Manchester. So I think it will be difficult to find a club that is suitable for Raheem Sterling. And also the wage is going to be a massive factor. So I think we have to see how that one pans out. But Ben Chilwell, another one that hasn't featured for Enzo Maresca so far this season. Someone that really we thought might get a bit more of a role, but Mark Coquelin, credit to him, stood up, he stepped up. Renato Vega is now second in place in terms of our left back option, so third choice for Ben Chilwell. I can see him going maybe on a loan with obligation to buy before the window shuts. I think Ben Chilwell, unfortunately, injuries have been a massive factor to why we probably haven't seen the best of him so far in the Chelsea shirt. And it's unfortunate because when we signed him from Leicester, off the back of a really good season for Leicester, we thought we were going to get the competition for Alonso in that part of the team, but it just hasn't worked out for Ben Chilwell. So I think the two will go. Big wages. One of the things that I've always spoken about on here is lack of leadership, lack of characters, lack of players that potentially we can rely on, call on to help some of the younger players in the squad. And obviously Ben Chilwell and Raheem Sterling both fit that category to a T. So to lose both of them, that is definitely, we're losing the experience in terms of the more older players, the senior players in the squad, albeit Ben Chilwell still, I think, only 26. But if you look at the average age of our squad, it's very young. So I do worry in terms of the aspect of, losing to relatively older players, if I can call them that, in the squad. Yeah, Ben Chilwell has to go. If he wants to, again, like Sterling, he wants to get into the England fold, then of course he's going to have to go. He's going to have to leave to get that game time, to get regular football, consistent football, and try and stay injury free before the next major tournament for England as well. But let's move on. Romelu Lukaku, deal almost done with Napoli. I think it's more down to the final stages. I think for Fabrizio Romano, if I'm not correct, although very fraudulent these days, let's be honest, he's not the go-to for the transfer stories anymore. David Ornstein, I think, has potentially reported, or The Athletic have reported something similar to say that Lukaku's deal is almost at the final stages with Napoli. Another Italian team for Lukaku. How many more times can he get into bed with these Italian clubs? Lukaku loves it, but we need to get him off the books. He's clearly not going to be in the plans for Chelsea. He's clearly not one of the the Maresca's first choice strikers, and Maresca still wants a striker as well. So, you know, to have someone like Lukaku there and still want another one tells you that he's not in the option in the manager's plans at all to feature for Chelsea this season. So good money. I think we're going to get in the region of 30 to 35 million for Lukaku, which is relatively what we were probably going to get for him based on the lack of football he's played for us, and also the time that he's been away on loan at Inter Milan and other teams as well. But yeah, we got to get him off the books, man. He's got to go. You know, his time was done when he dropped the interview, and the interview was probably the final nail in his coffin, not just with Chelsea fans, but also the fans, the club, the players. He just lost all respect for everyone. So I think this is probably the best deal that we can get for Romelu Lukaku. Now, there has been some news as I just hit record on this. I don't know how true it is. It was a Sky Sports link, so I know it's not been reported so far in Athletic, but Ivan Toney currently is in pole position to move to the Saudi Pro League to link up with Steven Gerrard and play over there. I think they've offered him a substantial good package in terms of wage structure, a fee around 50 million, I think, for Ivan Toney that will be given to Brentford. But I did see literally as a press record that Chelsea are interested in Ivan Toney. I don't know how true that is. I'm going to be honest. I know I screamed about it probably 2 seasons ago or last season as well about getting Ivan Toney, but I do think that would be the wrong option. I really do. I think the money that we're going to be spending on Toney, we could potentially just see what our options are going forward after that. I think maybe Mark Gu looks really good and Kunku's there, as I said before. And I know we need a number 9, but it's a gamble. It's for me at this stage now. I know I've changed my tune, but it is a massive, massive, massive gamble for me personally to spend that much money on Ivan Toney, the age that he is. But on the flip side, I don't want to be a flip flopper, but on the flip side, you know, brings a lot of experience from the Premier League. You know, a proven goal scorer on his day, able to find the back of the net. Lost the number 1 spot at Brentford with Wissa, filling that void for him whilst he was banned due to his betting suspension. But I do think we've got a good opportunity of signing him more than the Saudi Pro League club. We can offer probably a very sort of similar wage structure as to what they're offering him in the Saudi League. So I think it's a potential option, but at the same time as well, I just think there's other players out there potentially that we could sign, maybe even next summer. You know, I think, you know, again, João Felix can play that role as number 9 and Kunku can do that. Nicholas Jackson, you know, albeit, you know, I criticised him for the last game for his comments around John Obi Mikel, but, you know, if he can start scoring consistently, then there's an option. So that's a bit of a worry for me in terms of that. Now, obviously, Kepa, another one. Apparently, medical's been done. He signed an extension on his contract for Chelsea, which is interesting. And again, I think we've signed another goalkeeper today as well. We've said Mike Penders. Mike Penders has signed from Genk in the Belgian league. Apparently, he's holding down the number 1 position for Genk. 19 years of age, definitely one for the future. Another Thibaut Courtois in the making potentially, but we've signed him. He's remaining in the Belgian league for a season on loan. I think it's in the region of, I think it was 15 million I read. So look, I mean, Chelsea love a youngster. We know that already. Another option, obviously, Slanina's still there. Petrovic is still there. Robert Sanchez is still there. Felipe Jorgensen is still there. So we've got bags of depth in terms of goalkeepers at the moment. So interested that it was a loan deal and an extension. Maybe with the option to try and sell Kepa next season, at the end of next season. But hopefully Kepa does really well there. I potentially would have kept Kepa in the squad. I think he's a really good goalkeeper, you know, 2 times Champions League winner. I think he's still relatively young, maybe 29 years of age. So someone that I feel potentially has a role to play somewhere, whether that's at Chelsea or somewhere else. But I still think he's a really good goalkeeper. Now, does this spell the end for Petrovic? Does it spell the end for Gabriel Slanina? You know, 2 goalkeepers that we thought would have a lot of opportunities at Chelsea. Neither have had those opportunities so far this season or at Chelsea so far. So you do have to ask yourself the question, what will happen to both of those goalkeepers in the next couple of seasons or so? Will they remain at Chelsea or move on? So it is a bit of a harsh reality for some of these players. There will be outgoings. We know that Zazi is still in contention, potentially to move to Newcastle. Now, there is some very good news that I feel that Athletic reported on this morning, was that Trevor Chalobah may have just found himself a lifeline in terms of staying at Chelsea. Now, there is a lot of talk about Axel Disasi potentially going to Newcastle. Now, if that is the case, Enzo Maresca, I believe, is very keen on trying to keep Trevor Chalobah at the club to make sure that there's squad depth in that centre-back role at the club. Now, if that is the case, massive U-turn for Trevor Chalobah. Very still unprofessional how it was handled for him. Even if he stays or goes, I still think this is a very, it's a learning curve, a lesson learned from the club, not how to treat certain players. Because, you know, Trevor Chalobah, as I said a couple of weeks ago, is one of those players that just doesn't kick up a fuss, you know, doesn't moan that he's not in the starting 11. You know, when he does get a chance to play, he puts in a 9 out of 10 most games, you know, hardly puts a foot wrong at the club on and off the field. So for me, massive, if we can get this U-turn done, and use him as a squad player, use him in the League Cup, use him in the Conference League. You know, I think Trevor Chalobah, for me, warrants staying at the club. And I'd rather see, you know, a Badia Shill or Axel Disasi go before I see Trevor Chalobah leave this club, because, you know, he's one of those players that is he's just brilliant on the ball, comfortable. You could argue that he had Thiago Silva next to him, but I still think we've got a role for Trevor Chalobah at this club. So Chelsea, do the right thing. Make sure Trevor Chalobah stays at the club. He deserves another opportunity. He deserves the time. You know, Chelsea Cobham youth boy came through the ranks, and I feel like he's alongside Conor Gallagher as well, who's obviously left. But, you know, those sort of players you need, you know, to keep some of that Chelsea identity in the club. And for me, Trevor Chalobah is that player. So we can get rid of Disasi, get some money in for him, I'm all for it. But I think there is an obviously, you know, pure profit in the back of the owners' minds, trying to keep the pure profit going, which is a big worry, I think, for the club. But there's going to be a lot of movement, I think, in the next couple of days or so. Obviously, the window shuts, I think, on Friday. There's a lot of reports that we need to offload at least 8 or 9 players. So you would think potentially, as I said, Sterling, Chilwell, maybe Chalobah, Disasi potentially as well. You know, Andrew, I think, is in contention to leave the club. And Matos, I think they valued him at 10 million. They might want him to go. Harvey Vale is another one. There is a club that was linked to him. Now, as I said, I'm on holiday. All-inclusive drinks have kicked in, but there was definitely a club that was interested in Harvey Vale. In the next couple of days, he might leave the club. Another pure profit for the club to try and get some money in as well. If you can think of any players that we should keep out of the ones I've spoken about, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we will be back tomorrow to preview our Conference League football match. Servette, Geneva, taking that beautiful deficit over there from the first leg. Don't forget to subscribe. Linktree link in the description as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thank you very much for watching.